when Jay joins us, we can go ahead and get going. And I think we can be like the other session, be as formal and have some good dialogue. I think we can unpack this thing. The whole notion behind this, when we were putting this together, was rooted in this question. I think that I think we all kind of grew up with, in our communities. We heard folks say the first question which the priest and the Levite asked was, "If I stop to help this man, what will happen to me?" But the Good Samaritan reversed the question, "If I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him?" Mm-hmm. And when I think about the essence and the soul of philanthropy, our people are in it, right? We have shaped it. We continue to be at the center of conversations now around who receives and who gives. The images sometimes don't always reflect the level of giving that we do, of time, talent, and treasure. And so for a while, I've been playing with this notion of, we hear a lot about give back, right? Remember the whole phrase, people say giving back and paying it forward? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And as I stayed in that space for so long, I said, maybe there's something that our elders knew about giving back, but also giving black. And I know that both of you all sit in certain spaces. So I'm gonna pause, but I wanted the audience to know that at the essence of this, we weren't gonna spend a whole lot of time just trying to focus on what somebody else should be doing for us, but to talk about how do we use that which we have been given, whether I've been given some time, whether I've been given some type of know-how, or even I may have some resource, a coat to share, some shoes to give, some food to do. Yeah, so we want to keep it there, because I know some of the questions that came in, people wanted to hold institutional philanthropy, other folks accountable. We gonna always keep that in the forefront, right? Mm-hmm. But while we are holding other folks accountable for how they distribute resources in our communities, we have to also think about how we organize, grow resources to sow in our own. It's that whole notion of philanthropy for and philanthropy of. That one of is key. And so I want to pause to allow my brothers, Tyran Hill and James Sullivan, to really introduce themselves in their own way. Then we'll jump into some more dialogue and questions. But I want again to say welcome to you brothers this morning. Thank you for your willingness to be in this space. Tyran, I know you're up in the western part of and then my brother James is down in the greater Birmingham area.
That's right.
So just glad to have different brothers coming from different physical locations to come to this space with the Black Men Symposium. All right, so we'll let you all. Either one of y'all can kick us off. Give folks an insight of who you are, and make some open comments, and then we'll go from there. Brother down there, brother McNair. I see. I ain't seen you in a minute. You got a new COVID look, bro. You got
right. This is all COVID, man. I haven't seen a beard, man. Oh, and COVID got me wearing sweats every day.
I know, and you always. Hey, this brother here always clean too. And I'm seeing you in the sweat. You probably got some FUBU. That's a FUBU sweat. What's it called?
And so I figured I would go halfway with y'all. I figured I'd come halfway with it, brother. Something comfortable, but still, but my Nike game is insane from 2020, man. And I'm sorry, I haven't even introduced myself to the brothers, but let me say this. I feel like the whole world, not just Black folks, you know what I mean? We've been dressing up and getting into this space to engage in this level of acceptance and acceptability. And it's like one of the things COVID made us all do is just fall back and begin to accept each other, because we coming up on these Zooms as ourselves. Right. So what's happened is made me more comfortable with coming outside. Right. Look, y'all done seen it. Like, man, greetings to the brothers, man. Jermaine.
When you came on, I was like, is that the same brother? No,
I've been wearing toboggans, man, hoodies. Oh God. I'm back in the streets.
Yes.
You didn't even know this part of me, man. Yeah.
we can go ahead and jump in.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's
Um,
do it.
So, again, for a session that's really dealing with, I think, some concepts that are interwoven. This notion of giving back and this notion of giving black. And as I said earlier, Dr. Carnegie Woodson used to always say, when you control a person's thinking, you don't have to worry about their actions. And so we want to really unpack, I think, two terms that people are using a lot these days. And I think it's interesting that the world has pivoted to get to look at making black folks at the center now. The question is it going to be symbolism or is it going to be substance? And to me, the substance piece has to deal with that other part, that giving black part and what it means. And I think you brothers, as you will share today, have a host of knowledge and wisdom and understanding around this topic and how it's playing out every day in our communities. And so as you, and I said, you sent me the bios, but what I want to allow you to do is, to introduce yourself in your own way, make introductory comments. And from there, we can go ahead and jump in and have some real dialogue. But just know that I am humbled and honored to be in the space of brothers, because I recognize that every day ain't promised.
Right.
So this time that we have is treasure time. So thank you for you brothers for your time that you have bringing yourself to this space today. So with that said, I'm gonna let you, one of you all jump in, tell the people a little bit about who you are, make some opening comments about our topic, and we're gonna go from there. So welcome, and welcome to everybody who is online watching this from other places to this session with my brothers.
All right, I guess I'll go ahead and jump in. Again, my name is James Sullivan. I'm from a small town called Maplesville, Alabama. I'm pretty sure you probably haven't heard of that, but it was predominantly white. I graduated with 42 people, and I was the only black person in my class. So I felt the need that I need to go to a HBCU to get that experience. So I went to Stillman College. I graduated in class of 2005, and I am an Omega man, Spring 04 Rho Gamma. So I know I've been seeing a lot of bros on the calls. But, I graduated in 2005 and I moved to Montgomery, Alabama. I've always been like a corporate person. I always had a corporate job. And now I find myself in Birmingham. But when I came to Birmingham, my mindset started to change, and just being around the city of Birmingham, to me, is probably one of the greater cities I've stayed in. And the people that I interacted with just had a different mindset, and it made me look at our culture in a different way. So what I wanted to do was just to jump in and just learn as much as possible about the city of Birmingham. I was the first president of Young Professionals of the Birmingham Public Library. There I met a lot of good people. And in that group of people, I was introduced to the Birmingham Change Fund, which is a giving circle. I know, Darryl, you're very familiar with the Birmingham Change Fund. And, the things that we focus on, of course, is the Black community, and we focus on education, economics, and healthcare. And when there's an organization that's able to get grant money that targets and helps our kids, I just find myself just wanting to be a part of that. And of course, CIN is a group of giving circles. And from there, I'm just working in the community. I'm a neighborhood president. I serve on several boards, and I just find myself just wanting to serve and help people. And when you say give black, I think it means to me, if we learn something, we shouldn't keep it to ourselves. We should share it with the people, especially if you see they're doing something wrong. I think we just need to share information.
Okay. Thank you for that, brother. Hey, brother Tyran, brother James, one of y'all want to come on and follow brother James?
I don't want to, but I guess I will jump in there. Good morning, everybody. Tyran Hill, based out of Asheville, work for the North Carolina Community Foundation as their program officer, surveying the 13 counties in the western part of the state. Born and raised in Lexington, North Carolina. Same thing as James, went to the North Carolina A&T State University for undergrad, Aggie Pride, and I found myself relocating to Cleveland, Ohio. So I was in Ohio serving an adjacent community to the community in which Tamir Rice was killed by that police officer on some community organizing work. And so by way of getting snowed out, I came back south. Been doing a lot of public policy, economic development work for communities across the state, and was recently transitioned to philanthropy really about a year ago around this time. And I serve on a number of boards and committees focused towards giving to communities. And so I want to make sure that I'm doing my part to just shape that lens of really giving in an intentional way and taking that ownership of we're stewards of other people's dollars in philanthropy. Like, it isn't our money. And so we have to relinquish some of that power and authority as we give. Glad to be here.
All right. Thank you, brother. Welcome.
Wow. Beautiful meeting and hearing those introductions from you brothers. Glad to be here. My name is Jermaine McNair. I am community organizer and nonprofit director running a community-based Greenville, North Carolina-based nonprofit called NC Civil. And we really function as an anchor for outreach, partnership development for community-based initiatives. And when I say community-based initiatives, I mean initiatives that are designed to drive the inclusion of the community members that we oftentimes aim to serve, that oftentimes end up only being able to play the role of recipient of our services.
Right.
And in many cases, we bring what I like to call colonized models or industrialized models, the same kind of models that present so many barriers to their inclusion in the industrialized world. We bring nonprofit initiatives to serve in their communities that they can't lead and participate in the same way. So I like to focus on designing models where the community members that we serve can build their capacity to continually build themselves in their communities. And that puts us in the space from, we're here, we can do anything. We're like the utility knife. We can focus on health initiatives, and we have criminal justice and criminal diversion, education and small business, economic development and arts and culture, everything that it takes to grow a community, but to be able to do it in a manner that the community members can take pride and ownership of. But before that, man, I was born in the North, brought to the South in my young adolescent years, and I was pretty much a street kid. I learned the hard knocks first. I was a product of just about every social ill that we're trying to address now. I came up through that. I got in trouble. I was a 3-strike felon before I was old enough to drink, and then was indicted by the federal government and had to go away and serve years in federal prison, and was able to, do a deep dive during that time and really just see that being a very pivotal point when I ended up inside of a prison cell, and I was at a facility where there were about 1,500 men. And I just can't begin to tell you how many of those men were Black and looked just like me and walked just like me and talked just like me. And I began to think, well, if we're representing this much of the population in this one prison, and then I began to think about how many prisons there are across America. And if these are the ratios, I began to see that we were in a very real situation that no one was talking about. And I began to, and there's a lot in that that I can talk about, but I made that commitment that when I came home, I wouldn't just commit to myself, getting myself out of my situation, I would commit to my communities. And since then, I've launched the organization. I've served and continue to serve on several boards and commissions myself, Pitt County United Way, Uptown Greenville, which is the organization responsible for center city development here, gentrification, all those other things right in that space. Serving on state boards and commissions here with Governor Cooper on the North Carolina Reentry Council, things of that nature. I did go on to get my master's in sociology from East Carolina University, and on and on and on and on. But we're here, we're serving, and always glad to be a part of this energy of consciousness.
Mm-hmm. So let's. Thank you all for sharing in your own way. Thank you for letting the folks on here know more about you. You know how they say, let's pull back the onion on this give back, give black conversation. When you survey what is going on in our communities, does this give back have a real role? You know, should it be something that we be talking about, or is it a waste of time? Because there are folks that say, Darryl, why you dealing with this notion of what people should give when they're on the street? Maybe they should be asking the person who owns the street to give them something, right? And so the question I have is, let's go and unpack it. So we're people that came from the continent. We ended up in the Americas. We ended up in neighborhoods and spaces. And as far as I can remember, it was folk that looked like us who shared what they had to create those of us on this call. So how relevant is that for people to think about that they even have anything to give in this day and time? Talk to me.
I think I'll jump in, and I believe what I'm about to say, in my opinion, should be one of the primary considerations that we actually need to define give.
Yeah.
And then we need to be able to define what it looks like when it begins to move, right? Because the idea of resources and the way they exist in a capitalistic society, we really have to understand that. Like you can have a desert land with nothing there, brothers, and take and put some resources there and watch a structure begin to assemble around it that is about, in its innocence, it's just about putting organizational controls around resources, right? We know, I hear brothers talk about, an experience in the corporate world, and we know resources can't exist without controls over those resources, right? We need to know who's accountable for it, who's accountable for the inputs and the processes and the outcomes that those inputs create, right? Who's accountable? So what we do is we put talented people around those resources, but what we don't understand is that then that becomes a system of operations that oftentimes is very foreign to our community. So then we get a ton of resources in our community that we can't touch. And a lot of it comes to our community in the forms of salaries of folks that don't live in our communities, and they take that money and take it right back to the store, right back to their neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
And so remember, the reason why our communities were in this situation in the first place is because there was a divestment of interest. So people weren't here to set the systems. People weren't here to set the protocols, to set what contribution looked like. So it's basically, our communities are oftentimes economic deserts. Mm-hmm. And then the people bring the resources from outside, but the brother Tyran said something about, to me felt like it was leaning towards the idea of, he said something about power and control of these resources. And to me, because we're not considered to have the talent and the educational training, not as Black people, but I'm talking about these vulnerable communities, the Black folks that are in these vulnerable communities, because we're not trusted. What happens is we're not trusted to run the resources. So not only, so my point in bringing that up first is that we have to define what giving is, and then define the structure of what it looks like when it comes into our communities, because otherwise it brings the same institutional and industrialized models that we're not able to participate anyway. So they're really just building their organizations off the backs of poor people and coming into these communities, building big giant organizations, and the communities don't grow on par with the organizations.
See, Jay, I'm glad you began to take us there, because to talk about define what it is, and then the structures in which we bring them and how they introduce to our communities. And so when I look at, based on what I know about all y'all, when I look at it, so we have brothers that are a part of, I'm gonna say different aspects of community, right? When it comes to giving. So this notion of the narrative, could Jay unpack some of the narrative of it? Is that are we seen as people that can be stewards of resources? And psychologically, what's happening is other folks have said, oh, you can't be steward of ours. One. Second, then we start to believe we can't be stewards of our own. So as you all as you play with that, both of y'all, all y'all sit in different structures. I'm gonna go directly to you, Tyran. This notion of a community foundation that has community at the heart of what it's supposed to be. How do you unpack that as a Black man as you sit inside of this thing called a community foundation that's supposed to be a little closer to the community than some of these other philanthropic entities? How do you wrestle with that when now you're in the space of being stewards of some resources? Talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's a process. It's a journey, to be completely honest with you. So I'm serving 13 counties that don't look like me. Like, I'm the only Black man in almost every room that I go into. And so I take ownership over the reality that it's not that we don't have Black communities of community colors out here in Western North Carolina. It's just what is the oversight that has been occurring. And so we understand that, and a great part, philanthropy as a sector hasn't done a tremendous job of going above and beyond to reach out and figure out what's happening on the ground. And so I think that's the flip and model that has to occur specifically in a community foundation where we're supposed to be stewards over these local resources, have local boards helping to make those decisions. But the representation, even in those board positions, doesn't always look like the communities that we strive to serve. And so it's a strategy of making those relationships, doing that outreach, stigmatizing and moving away from this notion that, I'm stepping in as going back to the power dynamic. I show up to my site visits like this. Like, I'm not suit and tie, breaking down some of those elements to say, like, listen, you are the people that have the answers within community. I don't come from a place of telling you what you need or how you need to do it. I come from a place of wanting to learn and better understand how we supplement the work that you all are doing. I think that lends to the earlier question you asked about the importance of giving back and giving within a community dynamics. Is you build a model and infrastructure internally that philanthropy should come in and support rather than come in and we put in our parameters on saying, you need to fit within this box. It's like our communities have the answers to all of their problems and solving their needs. We just have to figure out how to align our resources to support. And so, I'm on our internal equity leadership team, and I'm constantly championing that. I serve on boards for other foundations. I'm constantly bringing that up of who is not in the room, how are these people missing, and how do we get them into the room? Not on the back end of, we want your feedback after you committed the application, but on the front end of shaping and molding the application so that we remove those barriers of, reporting standards. What is success in our book, because we're using best practices, may not be defined as what community best practices are, what their needs are. And so it's really adjusting that whole mindset and shifting that the way that we go about doing business as a sector.
Yes.
Yeah. And just to add to that too, as well, I, like I said before, I come from a corporate environment, and when it comes to these boards, most times, the corporate people, they select people to serve on certain boards. And what I've learned also is on these boards, they look for, they can have a great resume. They fit in perfectly. But the number one question that I always hear is, well, how much money can they bring? So, like, if you don't have the money, it can be a little more difficult. But I think that's a space where we talk about giving circles. Maybe we can create a strategy where giving circles can, be in a position to give money to these boards to have some type of representation. I don't know if that's the right way to look at it or the right thing to do, but breaking down the barriers, I think that could possibly be a starting point. As far as the Birmingham Change Fund, we're looking for ways to pass the torch, shall I say, to the younger generations to be even just interested in it. I think.
So, Bro James, for the folks who may not know, I think we hear this term giving circles. And as a person that they tried to coin me as the Johnny Appleseed of giving circles, but not recognizing that I came from Marion, South Carolina, one of the original circles, right? Right. And so it's amazing how institutional philanthropy will embrace something and think that they defined it when it came out of the nature of who we are, right? And so for a group of brothers like yourselves who at the Change Fund who have leveraged your resources and decided that It wasn't about how much you leverage. It was the mere fact that you leverage your nickel, your dime, your quarter, and your time. Because once you put the dollars on the table, what happened? Then y'all decided to go with some civic engagement work, right? Okay, when money ain't on the table, how are we showing up? So I wanted to make sure, because I wanted folks to understand that model, and not to give institutional philanthropy the credit for the model. And that's the problem. And I'm telling me, I was guilty of that. I was calling a giving circle. That's why I said, but there's a whole lot of collective giving going on out here that ain't a giving circle. So so Jay, you are taking young people. Some came out of your same journey, and you are making them assets in their own spaces. Talk about why you see that's important, and I'm gonna come back to the rest of y'all why you feel that what you do is pushing against that narrative of the receiver and the giver.
So the reality, man, was because, you know, that word gentrification, to be honest, it's this idea that whatever we're doing within these communities, however much we're passing around and moving money, it can be good, right? But the minute big money shows up, the power differential is so largely skewed that it tips the scales on everything we're doing. Listen, man, you really do not have to battle with people. You battle with ideas, you battle with structures and models and infrastructures, right? And if what we're doing isn't tight, the minute something tight shows up and it's heavy, you know, the Earth don't revolve around the sun because the sun tells it to, or because it just likes the sun. It's because that sun is the center of gravity. It is the heaviest thing, right? So everything falls into its orbit. We just fall into its orbit so naturally, right? And because we know that, we've become afraid of money.
Yes.
But at the community level, right? Not as individuals. But what we do is we say no development over here, no new stores. We don't want nothing, because we know instinctively, we know the minute it shows up, we're done for, right? So what happens is I started, I pushed my timeline back years, because we were in a situation in Greenville where they had started kind of developing right at the tracks. Finally, right? And there was nowhere else for them to go after this last move in capital development, except but to come across the tracks. And I knew that we weren't ready. So what I wanted to do was, this gets to why I wanted to build community members as assets, because I wanted us to understand that if we can get a pulse going of our own thing, right? Because development has two options when it faces something, right? It's looking at a space that has no pulse, no economic vibrancy, no anything, and then it has to, in that scenario, it has to set the pulse. But most of the time, economic development doesn't want to do that. It would much rather find something that's bubbling, got a little thing going on, and kind of what Tyran said, just invest on top of that in a manner that can maximize that, support that, and obviously capitalize on that, right? So my general idea was, if we could just get a pulse going with things that are ours, things that look like us, things that reflect us, our skills, our talents. If we like to dance, our culture, our flavor, our flow, right? Let's just start moving that. So look, what's crazy is we're just getting into the economic development conversation at NC Civil now. 3 years ago, right? I went and I pulled together a group of local photographers, videographers, artists, people that do all sorts of creative things, right? And then we went and opened a museum exhibit in the Greenville Museum of Arts called To the Core, right? Follow this logic. So the idea of the whole idea of To the Core was to begin to lift up this area called West Greenville, which is like the 4 or 5 census tracts with unemployment ranging from 13 to 35, like high density poverty, right? So it was the idea that to get the city by and large to begin to celebrate West Greenville as a cultural core, and understanding that you're never going to be able to build the kind of city that you want until you develop your cultural districts and not just your center city, right? And in order to have these cultural districts, you got to tap into the pulse that community has, the history, the richness, the culture, the legacy, the stories, the flavor, right? So we went in there with the museum exhibit, and then we began to work with the arts. And my point to that was not just because I'm not an artist. My point was to be able to take the community members, their talents, their skills, because if we ain't got nothing else sometimes, we've got livelihood, we've got vibrancy, we've got energy, we've got creativity, we've got this thing that we do. And that's an asset, right? But so for me, the idea was take that general asset and get it pulsating and get it bubbling to the point where people can look over and say, man, those guys are over there doing some cool things. Now, remember, we're not passing around dollars, but the general idea is that from the next step from that is, all right, get an easement to start bringing the street vendors out, right? Create a space where we can bring those vendors out and where people can come and tap into the cultural markets and things of that nature in our community, right? So we're right now in the process of converting our arts committee to something called the 5th Street Corridor Development Committee. So that 5th Street, the main thoroughfare, when you come into town and when you pass through the medical district that you have to get through to get to downtown, that main thoroughfare where all the issues are, turn that into that cultural district and really lift up the art. So I hope, even though I answered that question in a roundabout way, you could see the general idea was for us to be present, functioning, and happening already without the money. Yes. So that when the money shows up, it can tap into this thing that we got going on and we can keep command of it. And then it enhance our community in a way that reflects us. So when we look at the growth, we see ourselves in the reflection and are a lot less likely to give up the fight, run away, or allow them to price us out or do other things, right? Because it's our thing.
You see, this is why I like the presence of the brothers. So we're each tilling in different spaces in our community with institutions, and it gives folks a broader range instead of having it's like that old proverb says, until the lion has its own historian, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. So we got 3 storytellers and what I call architects working in the community. And I like the fact that we're working at different levels in that, because Jay, you got brothers and sisters that are coming trying to find their way that might be on the street.
Right.
Then we go over here to Brother James, who I'm gonna use this term. We deal with the talented 10th, who have been able to go on to college and get a little education and to take our resources. Now we can say, yeah, mom and daddy may not have had that, but guess what? We're gonna pool what we have. We ain't just gonna give back, but we're gonna give black. Yeah. And then Tyran, to be able to sit in an institution, and we know historically hadn't had the presence of a brother that looked like you. I was the first brother that the Community Foundation ever hired. And when I think about at age 57, now I watch the North Carolina Community Foundation, I think, where they gonna get a brother? Making decisions, right? So I appreciate that it took something for them to pivot, but they got a good brother, that got his feet on the ground. And so, I wish Greg would give us more time to really unpack this one. But I want people to be able to walk away with some nuggets from you all's travels, your experiences around this whole giving back, giving black. And so let's see if we can lead them. I think we're at 11:27. I think we finished at 11:45. Let's see if we can share. And I'm gonna try to capture them in the chat. And I'm looking at folks. I was looking at keeping the chat thing. I want to talk about, let's unpack it. So where do we begin if we really want to be good in this give back, give black? Is it something that we read? Is it places that we show up to? Where do we spend our physical time? So let's unpack it from that level, because I think we have the wisdom here to be able to help people to think about. They say you gotta crawl before you walk, right? So give folks some little bit of pieces around where they can begin to do. Is it something they read? Do they need to start thinking about how they volunteer differently? You all take that and let's create a list of things that we can then share out to folks that are listening around. Here's the journey that can help you around it. Move from theory to practice. Anybody can jump in first.
Go ahead, James. You look like you're ready to go.
I mean, to be honest, Jay had mentioned assets. I think your mindset can be an asset, So once we figure out what we're good at, what we like to do, we can use our mind to do almost anything. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. So, but when it comes to your mindset, what's next? So I think you hear it all the time about financial education. I think that's important as well. But how can the person start now? It's just really jump in. When I first got to Birmingham, I didn't know anybody. I just knew I wanted to do something. So what I did was I just talked to people. So and they gave feedback on where to go and things to do. And then from there, you just really have to take action and whatever you do. Because sometimes I believe when I'm talking to our people, a lot of times it's fear of failing. Kind of paralyzes a lot of people. So when it comes to things you want to do in the community, I say just do it. Don't be afraid of anything and just jump out and just learn by doing. That's what I always say.
All right. Thank you, brother. Thank you. All right. You're gonna pass that torch off. Come on, give me some more tools to put in the bag for the people.
Yeah, I'll take it. I come through philanthropy, as you already said, Darryl, through a non-traditional lens. I'm not born and bred philanthropy, and just work my way up through the ranks. I started out community organizing and just, really figuring out what are the things that communities need prior to even coming into the field of philanthropy. So I have a different lens than most. And I think I'm going to give two tracks, Darryl. The first is on an individual levels, I have to take ownership and responsibility to not allow my place of privilege to not benefit my community. And so we have, both the resources and knowledge within myself as well as other people of color in philanthropy to just have these type of convenings, to have these type of dialogues, to just get the information out there. One of the books that I read more recently is called Decolonizing Wealth. And it really breaks down the concept of how philanthropy as a structure work, how it's operating, and what are the practices that are damaging communities that we say we strive to serve, and how we can better serve them. And so I think that's a great resource for anybody that's just trying to figure it out. But to what James has already said, you just got to jump in and get going. As a community foundation, we have local affiliates, and I believe our local boards rather in 59 of the counties across North Carolina, and anybody from the community can serve on those boards. And we need more people to serve on those boards to have influence and input on the structure. I've done some work down in Eastern North Carolina. I've been in Bertie and Princeville, some of those areas, so I'm with you, brother. But, we need some of those folks that are actually doing the work on the ground to be the ones on our boards to help influence. And so the first starting point within our organization is getting to know your program officer. We have 3 program officers across the state. It's myself, Kelly Lee, and Ann Sorhagen. Those are your points of contact on how do you get in, some more understanding and awareness of grant processes. How does the money flow? How do you tap into the resources? And from there, we can help to bring people along and get them in those right positions and right seats to truly make influence and impact. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Bro, Jay, where we gonna start? What you gonna put in the bag?
Well, and I'm toggling back and forth between in my mind just who we're talking to. We're talking to just the general community resident, right, or the insider, in corporate role player, right? Because you can start. Everyone has a starting place. Well, but what I will say is, we first need to get very, very comfortable with Black.
Yeah.
See,
what I see in the mirror. Yes.
This is an issue because, guys, so again, I'm always going off track to get to where I'm going, but we always have to remember that when the way racism happened, it didn't happen at an individual level. It wasn't like, hey, man, you're going to be oppressed. You're going to be oppressed. Oh, yeah, and you too, right? It said everybody. All of you at the same time, all you Black people are going to be under this hand, and everyone is going to have an advantage over you just because you Black, right? What we fail to realize is that when they later abolished slavery, they gave us individual rights, not group mobility, right? They gave us individual rights, meaning you, James, if you decide that you want to, push and fight for your economic advancement, if you can work through the trauma of all that you've had to experience, all that you've been immersed in, all that your brain has absorbed, right, and figure out how to tunnel through that and push your way to success, you can do it, but alone, right? Because if we start seeing James get with Tyran and Tyran get with Jay and Jay get with Darryl, and all of a sudden we see a group moving, and hey ho, y'all, we didn't talk about y'all coming together, right? And see, the reality is, if you're going to oppress people as a group and hold them down for hundreds and hundreds of years, and then just say, oh, well, any of you as an individual, right? You have individual rights now. Go off and run. And then we took off running as individuals. Mm-hmm. The reason why I backed up is to reinforce this idea that it's going to take collective economics to get us moving forward. And what that means is black this, black that, buy black this, support black that, speak black this, black groups, black whatever, black, all this black stuff, right? But then when we start talking this black thing, then everybody, right? Now, so now here's what, so they call it reverse racism. They call it all sorts of other things, right? And then we don't even want to touch it. Now, so first we've got to get comfortable with the idea of black and begin to educate to help others get comfortable with that, because it is important. But then, for starters, we need a table.
Yes,
we need a table, right? I hear these stories about how, members of just old white men. There's an old buddy that runs the building where our offices are. An older black gentleman who owns the building where we operate our offices. And he said, man, back in the days, I used to clean buildings. And he said, I used to clean the old judge back there. And I used to be wondering, why are all these high profile white men meeting late at night, 9, 10 at night? And these names are in this area, some of the highest ranking families, but they've been getting together and talking for years on top of years on top of years. Now that makes me ask, well, where's the table where we come to talk and deal with things and build that collective, right? We don't even have a table. So we can throw money in every which direction and do all this different stuff, but until we get comfortable with black and get a table, right? So now when Brother James says, which I really appreciate, this idea of just get started, right? Just bring your talents and your gifts to bear wherever you can bring them. That's important, because you got to get started. What I would add to that person that's just coming in from the individual level and just tapping in somewhere, be willing to defer to some degree what your thing is for the collective. Meaning you got to get your thing going just to know what it is. You got to get your thing going to know what your values are, what your principles are, how you like to operate. And then your next agenda is, how do I bring that to another thing that's going on? And without compromising my deeper values, right? How do I make sure that I'm willing to create an opening for me to connect with other things? And even sometimes I have to defer for the collective so we can build that table. If we can do that, if we can get comfortable with black, figure out where our table is and start building our table where we talk and organize our things. And then for every individual that has had to get started on a micro level just within themselves, you need that. You got to get started, because you don't want to walk into a room and you don't know who you are. You will get ripped apart. Your family will get ripped apart. So it's good when you start and get your own thing going, but make sure that while you're going, you're cultivating ideals and principles about what your values are, what your strategy is. And then when you bring that into the collective room, that's the only way you know what you can defer on and what you can't compromise. Because there's some values we can't compromise to get into the room. But if you haven't done enough work on the individual level, you won't even know what you can compromise and what you can't, and you'll haul and run for the hills. So
now,
that would be,
you just stirred up something, brother Jay. You didn't stir. You didn't stir it up. I was sitting here. So when you went up, first you started with, we got to first be comfortable with black. There are a lot of folk who look in the mirror and they struggling with that. It's almost they can say, creator, oh, Hey, can you make me a little different hue? Can you take a little bit of this melanin out? Can you just change me? So that notion that we got to go back to first. If I buy some Nikes, I don't go back to Converse when I got a problem with them. So the notion that we better get comfortable with that which we were created to be. But you said something about this whole thing about Black. It's amazing when we look at the principle of Kwanzaa, and I put this in the chat. People are talking about the principle of Kwanzaa. I told somebody the other day, I said, y'all, the reason I do 7 Harambe's, because that's the principles of Blackness. People say, what is that? No, the principles of Kwanzaa were connected to the original principles of Blackness. It wasn't connected to the Kwanzaa that we have now. So I put those over there because I think there's nothing new under the sun. And I think what you brothers are lifting up is we got to go back to some things that if it was good enough for granddaddy and daddy and mom and them to struggle through this, why can't it be good enough for us? And this notion that we feel that we got to make it better or make it look, or we got to put our kids, if they're not in quality spaces, if they don't sit next to Buffy and Jody. So in the time that we have, I want to, and Jay, you stirred this up. All your brothers came out of neighborhoods and community. What was that? Let's remind people, what were those things, that one saying, that one thing that you heard either from an elder, from a family person, that is something that you keep in your bag now, that when you sit in those rooms and there's no reflection in there, what is it that keeps you anchored and grounded? So you don't get out there and misrepresent who you is. Okay. Yeah, I bust the verb up. Yeah.
You know what? If y'all brothers don't mind, and this will help me not be the anchor and not close this one out, I'll open this one up. That way somebody else can get the final word. But because that's an easy one for me. And it may not even be specifically what you were thinking or in the vein you were thinking of, Darryl. Mm-hmm. But when I was serving time, man, I got to the point where I knew I was going to make it. Like I had worked through my mess well enough to where I was sitting on my own principles and ideas. And I'm like, oh, this is how the world works. Oh, I can figure it. Oh, I've got this figured out. Oh, I'm good. Right. And I literally knew that I would be, I'll go as far as to say unstoppable. I was going to be okay, but not just okay. I was going to be unstoppable when I came home. An old minister was in there doing time with us. And he said something to me one day that changed my life. And is the reason why I do this work. He said, the wolf, and according to his faith, he was referring to the devil, right? But he said the wolf will always let one sheep go. If by getting rid of that one sheep, it can slaughter the thousands. And that thing hit me because you're talking to somebody who just knew I was out. I'm gonna get out of prison and I'm gonna go get to this thing and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna take off and I'm gonna soar. And when he hit me with that, it made me, am I going to be the sheep that gets let go? Because if you've learned all that you've learned enough that you could get out and get some mobility, but that was the information, the knowledge that, see, because the people that raised me literally taught me how to sell drugs, but they taught me what they knew. Mm-hmm. There was going to be nothing left for those young men coming up after me except the same old mess. I decided win, lose, or draw, I'm bringing all of my talents back to this community. You get what I'm saying? Win, lose, or draw. And that was a quote that stayed with me.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate you lifting up what Ruth Lester used to always say, the spirit of reciprocity. I'm going to bring it all back. I may not be around to see it when it comes to fruition, but guess what? You just said it. You must have known Ruth Lester. She must have bumped into your spirit at some point, Jay. So thank you for sharing that, brother James, brother Tyran. Come on, and add something to the old sayings that we're gonna continue to bring forward.
Well, mine's gonna be real quick. I have several, but the one that really keeps me going is the feeling that you give, or the feeling that you have when you give something is always better than the feeling that you have when you receive something. So I always want to be the person that can give something because it just makes me feel so much better than receiving something. So that's what I'll leave you with.
All right, thank you. Yeah, bring up the old words of the folks. See, your ancestors that are all around you in your spirit are smiling right now because they're like, yeah, he remembers something that we told him to pass along.
And most of the time, it's time that I'm giving too, though. So, which is it's important as well. So,
yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, brothers. I mean, the very simple.
Brother up in the mountains, come on.
Yeah. It's real simple with me, to be honest with you. It's two principles that I live by that continue to just shape my life. My grandfather, Tim Price, I'm going to name him because he deserves the honor, told me very early on, somebody got to work. And, it's just that roll up your sleeves. Somebody got to do it. Even on the days but you don't want to, or you're not really inclined to, is like the understanding, like as that head of our family, is that father figure for many in the community as well as within our family, is that, somebody got to get it done on behalf of everybody. And so whether that's my personal sacrifice for the betterment of the collective, then so be it, because I can find my peace and my just reassurance in knowing that, I may not see the benefits, but if my nieces, nephews, and the people after me will, then fine. And the second one is, the worst thing you can do is show up to a room. If you're invited, the worst thing that you can do is show up to a room as somebody other than yourself. And so it's bringing that sense of purpose, that level of awareness that it takes to really get to your true center, and then bringing that into every room you go into. So it ain't always easy, when we're conditioned through, our model of school and philosophy and psychology to, code switch and put on, your different faces and all that different type of stuff. But how do you bring, even in those moments, your elements of your most authentic self to every conversation and interaction? So, yeah.
Hey, brother Greg sent me a message. He said, so it gave us maybe another additional 8 or 9 minutes. And since you brothers just started unpacking some stuff, I saw a question that came up in the chat around, and it's always the question when philanthropy comes up, folks who want to know, how do we get access to Mr. Childish resources? And because the type of session we have, maybe we can share around just how do folks begin to leverage for their own. And I use leverage because my dad said, when you go to the table to negotiate, I don't care if you got a penny on the table, the negotiation is different.
Right.
Versus if you ain't got nothing. So I want you all to talk, because each one of you all, Jay is nonprofit guru, community organizer, Tyran, you're part of the organization. Y'all leverage other resources too. Here we go, Brother James with the Birmingham Change Fund. Sometimes they're trying to get more members in, and we ask people to invite. So what would you share with the person who made that question around how do we begin to engage these philanthropic structures or ventures out there? Because we're talking about the lay of the land. We gave folk the foundation, so unpack it a little around for the person who may say, hey, I'm trying to figure this out. How do I do this? How do I access these different entities of giving that can help my own organization? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, I would say to Brother Jay's earlier point, it's one of the things about, as a community coming together and establishing that table, bringing in collective resources, but then to take it just one step further, requiring us as philanthropy to come to your table. So for us to not invite you to ours, but have that level of accountability towards us. And I think that starts on a basic level of relationship. It's one thing to reach out in the moment of, we got an open grant cycle. By the way, we do have a grant cycle that's opening up February 1st, the Hill and Communities Fund. I got to mention it and throw it in there, fellas. It's for communities of color, or English isn't the first language, and for low-income communities that, have been just constantly marginalized and disenfranchised throughout history in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'll drop my information, and you all can reach out to me directly on that point. But it's building those relationships early on. So, knowing who your program officer is, knowing who the people are operating within those structures, and just having dialogue. One of the biggest things that I've been surprised by is the number of nonprofits who just called and said, look, I just want to get to know you as a person. It's a different type of hire. I just want to have some conversation. And from there, it's helped to just build true relationship where now I can leverage and say, well, we may not have a funding opportunity for you, but I know my partner at Z Smith or at the KP Renable or John Rexendam, like I can make those other connections on behalf. So it's really about having those authentic relationships.
one of the things I want to thank you for is that you took the call.
Right.
They reached out, because sometimes we get folks that look like us who sit in those spaces who won't take the call when their other colleagues are calling in. They taking off, but we sometimes think we got to gatekeep on the resources. It doesn't hurt you, a program officer that looks like us, to spend some time to have a conversation with us to say, hey, here's how the process works, bro. Let me tell you how it works.
Yeah.
But to not feel important enough not to take your call, that's a level of arrogance that's hard for me to embrace in this day and time. When you don't have time to take a call from Miss Lula May, who may have the nonprofit down there, and you know it might be struggling, but you can't spend time for that when Miss Lula May made it possible for your behind to even be sitting in the boardroom.
Exactly.
So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to lift that up, because sometimes it is just a mere of extending some grace to other people in the spaces that we sit in. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that was it, man. You done wrapped it up for me. It's just really that I have to be aware of my privilege. I've done a lot of years doing community work. I've been on the ground, but now I recognize that there is a power shift that's happening. Even in the people that I talked to and I worked with back in the day, we was all fighting for a cause together. It's like now they're like, well, my struggle, so help me out, get some resources, get access. And I have to, like you said, answer that call. There's a level of accountability to everybody that I have, that I've seen the great work that they do. I'm learning about the great work they do. And then going above and beyond to reach out and see who else do I not know about and how do I bring them into the fold also. But you have a strong core of people in color that are in philanthropy across North Carolina, and we all are in constant communication with each other. And so where it may not be, I'm a personable person, you can reach out to me directly, but where it may not be that you can't get me, you may get, Gladys or John Rex Sabrina or my brother Mo or somebody along those lines, but they're going to get you connected with who you need to. So just focus on building those relationships where you can, and we'll try to take it from there and help you along the way.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for sharing. Bro, James.
Like I said, just real quick, people talk about, money and capital, but also, it doesn't have to be money. It can be, like you said, time and your talents. But also I would like to add that a lot of times, you may have heard before, your network is your net worth. So a lot of times your network can connect you with people who may have capital, and just spending the time to getting to know the people in your network. Those are ways that you can find capital as well. So this is pretty much it.
Yes. Well, in our last few minutes, let me because we got to come in. I'm gonna let you all share any takeaway you like. That has to be brief as we leave, because it may be something that bubbled up that somebody said along the way, and recognizing, brothers, that every day ain't promised. So we don't know if we're gonna be around to say it tomorrow. Yeah. So feel in the time that we have, we got 4 minutes. Share something with the people, because there may be somebody on this call that's struggling with something personally or professionally, that can hear something from you all that will make them decide, hey, I want to keep on keeping on. Okay, take it away.
Man, well, I really wanted to just close and make sure that I celebrate these brothers here. Just meeting you brothers today, but you guys are clearly champions in your spaces and champions for our communities. And I know that to champion anything doesn't come without sacrifice. So we see you on this call, and we see you on this square, and we see you talking about the great things, but a lot of times we don't see that sacrifice. And you don't have to tell me your whole story for me to know that there's some things back there that you had to work through to get to where you are right now, man. And obviously you can't really get super far when you're doing it just about self. Most often you got to tap in and celebrate something greater, right? And I don't know what that greater is that has allowed you guys to continue moving forward, but I would like to think that somewhere in that greater was a concern for our community. And in that sense, man, we are brothers. You know what I mean? Because it's a part of that brought us all here. And when we meet and touch hands and give dap or do it however we do it, we know why we here, man. I look forward to
Yes.
touching hands with you brothers in the field, man, and being able to do some work together, man. I thank y'all.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I guess I say something real quick. I think about what I want to leave is, at eulogies and at funerals, a pastor would always say, "What would somebody say about you between the dashes?" I think that's how it goes. So what pushes me is that, and I want to live forever. So how does that look? Maybe having an endowment or something like that, or having a building named after myself that provides education to at-risk kids, or just my kids carrying on what I taught them to the future generations. So that's what pushes me to do what I do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, everything, like Brother Jay said, like, just thanks to all y'all, man. It's always great to be in this. Like, this is the first time I've been just in a collective of Black men in a long time. So just this space is what feeds me and keeps me going. But for those out there, I really feel like you got to focus on the internal journey. It's all our life, our purpose, our professional, personal, like all of it aligns in one space, and that's that internal pursuit of helping yourself become aware of who you are and how you operate, and then introducing that and showing that to the world. And just leaning into that more and more helps you to really just be well in all aspects of life. And I know it's a mental health session going on right now, so I ain't gonna take it there. I got a social work background, but that's the reality of it. It's really bringing yourself and bringing your whole self into every place that you step into. So just keep working, keep fighting. You may not see the benefits of it immediately, but in the long term,
Right.
It'll make all the difference in the world for the people who will come behind us.
Well, my brothers, to Tyran, to James, to Jay, my soul is internally grateful. Thank you for what you shared, the way you shared it. And I had to say this on behalf when I first met James McNair. I was speaking. We were at the governor's mansion. I was doing this thing, coming in as dealing with service years, and as I surveyed the audience, there was not a whole lot of reflection there that looked like me. And he did something that I always like to do to people. Not only that reflection, but I try to go up to the person afterwards and say, "Hey, bro, how you doing? Right. Good to meet you." So that notion that when we're in spaces, affirm your reflection, embrace your reflection. And to me, that I think that can begin a way of dealing with a lot of stuff that we deal with. If we just affirm that which it is, whether it is laying on the street or owning the street. Affirm it.
That's it.
Affirm it. Yeah. Right. And to you, brothers, man, thank you for your time today. Thank you for what you shared. Continue to till the ground. Continue to keep your hands on that plow. Because we know that when you're doing something that's right, you're gonna get adversity. People gonna come against you. But if you just falling in line, ain't nobody gonna throw up no roadblocks. They're gonna affirm you. Oh, aren't you a good one?
Hey, that's true.
So I want you, brothers, to stay prayed up, stay in fellowship with one another, stay connected to what you do, and we, and hopefully our paths are gonna cross again, right?
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I hope so.
Yeah. Still be engaged in making our places and spaces better for those that are coming after us. And so
that's right.
On this thing, I'm gonna let you all, because Greg gonna probably pull us back to some other sessions you may want to check out. But thank you. Asanta Sana. Peace and blessings, brother. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Thank you. Nice meeting y'all.